From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight as we break down the Broncos' loss to the Las Vegas Raiders 32-23. Certainly a lot of frustration coming out of this game. The Broncos, in some ways, took a couple of steps forward, especially Russell Wilson having, I think, his best game of the season, but shadowed over by the Broncos giving up 212 rushing yards on the ground. Javonte Williams' injury knocked out for the season. Also, of course, Melvin Gordon's fumble that was returned for a touchdown. How do you sort it out on this one, Ben?
Well, it's not any one thing. I know the fans melted down about Melvin Gordon's fumble, and that certainly was a game changer. The win percentage took a precipitous drop, at that point, and the point swing there was brutal, and it's been a problem with Melvin Gordon. It only seems to be getting worse, and that's something that they need to figure out. He's in his head, and they need to figure that out. That said, there were a litany of other reasons. They lost by more than one score, so it wasn't just Melvin Gordon's fumble.
And that was in the second quarter, and they actually marched back down the field and scored a touchdown to tie it up.
Right. Lack of converting on third down. I think it was like 3 of 11 in that game. You got to be able to convert on third down. At least half your third downs. They're just not there. They're not even close to there. The drops continue to be a problem. The Broncos have 6 credited drops on the season, which would make them have 3 teams in the league that have more drops than them. That'd be the Lions, Jets, and Dolphins. And I've counted more drops than that. At least balls have hit receivers in the hands they probably should have caught. And they come in key moments. And it's not just any one thing. There's a lot of stuff that's wrong right now that needs to be fixed. The good news, it's all fixable. Like the things that are wrong are all fixable. But the bad news is it's just not getting fixed at a fast enough rate. And you've got fans that they're starting to melt down about it. And not having Javonte for the rest of the year, that's a big blow. That hurts. The good news, you're going to be getting Dulcich back. You're going to be getting Justin Simmons back here soon.
When Miners,
after the Colts game. So there are guys that are going to be coming back. But for right now, a lot of the preseason strategy for the Denver Broncos looks like a failure. They didn't get the reps, and guys are getting hurt.
Yeah, I mean that's at least what it looks like on the face value of that. And again, you bring it up there with a couple of the drops in the game. Jerry Jeudy had a pretty tough one, but once again, he caught 4 passes. I did like for just a moment. Again, I know everybody has got the pitchforks out, including it sounds like you. I know everybody's upset, but it sounds to me, one of the things I did like about the offense is they were able to spread the ball around. It wasn't just the Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton show. Mm-hmm. Jerry Jeudy had 4 catches for 53 yards. Kendall Hinton had a couple of catches. KJ Hamler had that big 55-yarder. That's exactly what he needs to be on this team to be able to do. Plus, again, you still probably need to get the tight ends a little bit more involved, but Eric Salbert helped set up the first touchdown score with a 25-yard catch down the seam. So I did like their ability to spread the ball around. I think from the offensive standpoint, the third quarter was a bit of a miss, right, on multiple levels. And so it's one of those deals like the reason why the Raiders had been 0-3 up to that point is they hadn't put together a full 60-minute game. They were able to do that against the Broncos, and the Broncos, to a certain extent, allowed that to happen with their play in the third quarter.
Yeah, if you can't stop the run, you're just going to keep getting bludgeoned with it, and that's sort of been the Raiders' thing for the last couple of years with Josh Jacobs. They just keep bludgeoning the Broncos with it, and they haven't been able to stop it. They rolled up, and it wasn't just Jacobs. There were some key Derek Carr runs that they just didn't have contained on the quarterback. It busted some third down plays that would have had some pretty big stops as well. So, like I said, it's not any one thing. There were a lot of things going on. There are some positives. I mean, the offense did score more than they have all season thus far. Of course, it was the Raiders, so that was expected, but still not at the level where it needs to be. And you've got to figure some of that out going forward. Albert O was a complete non-factor. It looks to be done. I mean,
he had like one snap.
Yeah, he had a single snap. He was barely even out there. So I understand that the original plan going into that game was to rest some bodies for the Thursday night football game so that they could rotate because they wanted to kind of keep guys fresh and the wear and tear and all that. But I don't know. I not getting Alberto. I mean, his speed on the field. It feels like you're at a team that doesn't have that doesn't have speed. That you would try to get speed out there on the field more than just one play with KJ Hamler.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It's been a little bit interesting with his usage. Let's go to the defense here for just a little bit and talk about, again, the run defense was the thing that's going to be the storyline here. Thought Patrick Surtain had some really nice battles with Davante Adams. Mm-hmm. That was a highlight, of course, seeing him play as well as he was. Davante Adams still had 9 for 101. Some of that was not always matched up on Pat Surtain. They were doing a great job once again. This is something that the Broncos had got to clean up, getting wide receivers on linebackers. The Broncos don't want Josie Jewell covering Davante Adams. They don't want Josie Jewell covering Deebo Samuels. teams will continue to do that if you're going to let them. They had a play where the first one was Devontae Adams, Josie Jewell covering Devontae Adams. The very next one was Jonas Griffith covering Mac Hollins. And they got first downs on both those plays because that's the matchup that good quarterbacks are going to take advantage of. So that's got to be cleaned up right away. How concerned are you about the run defense?
A little. Not freak out mode, but there's concern. I think the Raiders found something, and it's up to the Broncos to seal that because you've got Jonathan Taylor potentially on Thursday. He's got the ankle issue right now, but potentially have him on Thursday, and you're going to have to figure it out against a much more talented back. If they don't figure that out, Jonathan Taylor could be in for a career day. So I think if you're the Denver Broncos right now, you need to put on the All-22 and ask yourself some tough questions today. Where are we getting this wrong? Is this execution? Is this coaching? Is this what is this? And how do we solve that? I think they need to look themselves in the mirror and say, we're at the 25% mark. We're at the quarter mark. It's time to ask the tough questions.
Okay, well, I guess what are the answers of that? Because I see that on Twitter. I see people with, and in fact, I even put out a tweet basically saying, hey, if we're up to Broncos Twitter, they would have literally cut or benched damn near every starter out there. So asking the tough questions seems like a little bit of a play on itself because this is your team, this is your coaching staff. What are the tough questions and what are those answers?
Well, the tough questions are benching and cutting people is silly. That's a non-starter. You're in coaching to help guys get better and maximize them, not cut them and quit on and walk away from them. So the people that want to cut Melvin Gordon, it's the biggest eye roll I've ever seen. Like that's not football. That's just throwing a temper tantrum. As far as the rest of it goes, I mean, you as a coach, you're in there to maximize your guys. So you need to ask yourself, am I putting the guys in the best position? And if linebackers are out there on wide receivers, then I'm not putting them in the best position. How do I remedy that?
Gotcha.
That's a scheme thing. If I'm a player, I'm looking at this and say, did I have gap contain? How did Derek Carr get outside of contain? How did Derek Carr get out there and scramble for 20 yards?
7 times.
But yeah, how did Derek Carr get outside and do this? What did we do? What did we not execute? Who was supposed to have that? And why did it not get done?
Gotcha.
And so that's what I'm saying. And it's not a point the fingers, hey, you're at fault kind of thing.
Well, that's what I was wondering about.
There's a difference between giving out blame and accepting responsibility. And in that room, you've got to accept, hey, that's on me. I got to fix that, guys. Here's what I need to do to fix that. You guys can help me out. What else am I missing here so that I know that in the future?
Right. So that's okay. So that actually makes more sense. The way I was taking was more of a pointing the finger, like, hey, we got to start asking the questions. More of an accusatory.
No, that's how you lose a locker room. That's how you lose a locker room. They melt down. This is a win Broncos country wanted. This is because it's Josh McDaniels. But in the end, you've got to go out and you look at the things that went wrong and say, okay, are these correctable? If they are correctable, then let's find the path to correct them. And if they're not correctable, why are they not correctable? And how do we solve that for the future?
They had 6.2 yards per play, which was a season, one of their highest. Again, there are certain things about this team that need to be cleaned up. Talk about the penalties. Obviously, the turnover was significant. But coming away from this thing, it sort of felt like the Broncos did a lot of the things that they wanted to, with the exception of the run defense and, of course, the turnover with Melvin. I think offensively, they need to clean up whatever happened in the third quarter. And I sort of believe that against the Indianapolis Colts, who are the only other team the lowest scoring team in the AFC, the Broncos are second lowest, but the Broncos have also defensively are third fewest in the AFC as far as points allowed. So it seems to line up as we sort of tip forward a little bit to the Colts for a bit of a get right, but I'm sure the Colts also view the Broncos in a similar light.
Good news for the Broncos, they haven't lost at home under Nathaniel Hackett, whether that's preseason or regular season. All their losses have occurred on the road where they haven't won. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe they're just better at home right now, and they need to figure that out, and that'll be an opportunity to square things up. You get the short week, it's got to be a little more conservative on both sides. That plays to a better defensive football team. You're at home, that plays to a better defensive football team. So there are some advantages coming into this. I don't want to sit here and rain doom and gloom at 2-2 with a share of second in the AFC West, but there are definitely some glaring items that you want to take a few games and say, okay, these are problems. We've got to fix them.
But in the meantime, and the last thing I have for you on this, this is where guys like Russell Wilson maybe have to fireman carry this team through some moments, right? He's going to have to be sort of that leadership beacon. You and I talked about it coming into the season with a team and an organization that is more or less used to losing. They're used to, like the Raiders were losing those 3 games to start in a way the Broncos would have been very, very, very consistent with, right? Just having it in the grasp and then watching it further away. Well, the Broncos are used to that they have to get past that mentality. They have to close. And they did such a good job against the 49ers. They did such a good job against the Texans. They found ways to close those games. And maybe you're right. Maybe the home field helped a little bit that. This was an example. The Raiders, the Broncos were down only 2 points. The Raiders got the ball with 7:16 left in the game, and they closed it out with a 10-play touchdown drive.
Yep.
That is a moment where the Broncos, last couple of games, have closed it out. That was a moment where they got off the field. They even got it to a 3rd and 5 to maybe force a 3-and-out for the Raiders. And Derek Carr scrambled up the left side and ended up getting a first down, and they just went right down the field and scored. But the point being is the Broncos have to get themselves back into those moments and close. And I think that they will, at least at home.
I think you've got to do things to prepare yourself so you don't have to have those miracle closeout moments to begin with. I think it was a disservice. The fact that you got used to that we can win like this.
Sure.
Good point. And seeing Russ dig us out against Houston and San Francisco. And then maybe you were lackadaisical in the third quarter because you knew Russ could bail you out. And then all of a sudden, well, they got a good drive together. It's a 2-score game. And now it doesn't matter if Russ can bail you out because he can only score once on a drive.
Yeah, well, I mean, but they did get the touchdown, the 55-yard completion to Kamler, and they did bring it within 2. Field goal would have won it at that point, and all you needed to do is
you needed to stop.
Get the Raiders to punt.
Yeah, and the problem was the defense been on the field too long at that point.
They really had, time of possession, clearly 34.
Something like 70-something plays on defense. That's absurd. You get above 60 and you're losing.
74 plays versus 48 for the Broncos.
Right. You get above 60 plays on defense, your defense is gassed. They're going to lose.
Yeah. No, that's certainly something to look at here. And, of course, last time the Broncos were at home, unfortunately, they had 9 3-and-outs. They had 10 punts in that game. So things that they're going to have to clean up either way. But I did find some encouragement in Russell Wilson's play in this game, at least quarters 1, 2, and 4. And then I sort of feel like the Broncos maybe can build off a couple of those things as they spread the ball around a little bit more. That's something I want to see.
I also thought Montrell was a bright spot.
Yeah.
I thought he's,
on the return
finally
game,
starting to settle
22
down.
yards per return.
Starting to settle down in the return game. I thought that was a bright spot. So ending this on some optimism, I think, at least point us to some optimism.
That's right. Well, you left the pitchfork outside. We'll, make sure you don't
I'll pick it up on the way out.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.
You can stand up and salute in Denver, and you got the world champions that live in your town.